Welcome to the Naavik Gaming Podcast, where it is our mission to explore the business and future of video games. We bring together the industry's brightest builders, investors, and thinkers to keep a pulse on current events, dissect emerging trends in games, share lessons learned, and have a great time. This podcast is also part of Naavik's growing ecosystem, which ranges from free and premium research to consulting and advisory services. For more information, visit www.naavik.co. In gaming, protecting revenue from fraudsters is crucial, and that's where Insure AI, this episode's sponsor, comes in. Insure AI provides payment fraud prevention that's effective and tailored to your needs. The team's adaptive AI creates a dedicated model based on your data, focusing on behavioral patterns to catch even the most sophisticated fraud attempts. With decisions made in under half a second and up to 98% approval rates, Insure AI ensures more legitimate transactions get approved, delivering a seamless experience for players. Plus, with a chargeback guarantee, you can focus on growing your business while the risk is handled for you. Keep players in the game and turn payment fraud into a profit center with Insure AI. To learn more, simply head to insure.ai/gaming or check out the link in the show notes. Now, let's jump into the episode.
Welcome to the Naavik Gaming Podcast. I'm your host, David Taylor, and today my guest is the co-founder and CEO of Spatial, a company that has undergone a wide-ranging evolution over the years from its early days as an AR collaboration platform to its recent position as a Roblox competitor with 2 million plus creators, and now a VR game developer with the top-earning VR game on the MetaQuest store at the time of this recording called Animal Company. Spatial has raised almost $50 million according to Crunchbase since its inception, based on the founder's conviction that 3D virtual spaces are the future of social experiences. In this episode, we'll explore how a founder decides when it's time to pivot, the dynamics of competing with Roblox, and what the future holds for VR, UGC games, and web-based games. So without further ado, Anand Argrawala, welcome to the Naavik Gaming Podcast.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Can you kick us off by giving us a bit of background on you and how you came to found Spatial?
Sure. Yeah. So Spatial is my second company in the 3D user interface space. My first company was called BumpTop. Started that off as my master's thesis in 2004, over 20 years ago. It was a 3D user interface that used, imagine a computer desktop. Use a physics engine, the Novadex physics engine, to make your computer desktop feel like a physical simulation. So you could pile everything up like a real desk. You'd pin stuff on the walls, have sticky notes, so very tactile in that. And so that was back in 2004, before the iPhone existed. So the idea was, when we moved to touch interfaces, how is that going to change interfaces? That company was bought by Google in 2010, and we joined the early Android team. So I was one of the first PMs on Android, and got to see that rise. And then at Google, worked around on Google Photos and Google Glass a little bit, but ultimately left Google. And
wait, when you were building that, sorry to interrupt, but when you were building that, did you know touchscreens were going to be a thing, or did that sort of come about separately?
Well, it's interesting. It's a hunch, right? Because I think researchers, I was doing it in the University of Toronto. So the hunch was that touch interfaces, but it was all about the stylus back then. If you remember tablet PCs, the idea was it was going to move to touch, but with stylus-based computers. And of course, Steve Jobs was like, we don't need the stylus. When people lose that, forget it. And so similarly, I think people had the hunch when we started Spatial that things are going to move into a VR AR headset, and that's going to be your next computer. And so similar trend.
Got it. Okay, so sorry, I interrupted. You're saying you founded Spatial.
Yeah, so after leaving Google, trying to figure out what to do, went on a vision quest, did a gap year, and eventually...
Wait, a vision quest? Tell us more about that.
Well, it's like, okay, when you leave a company, everyone's like, or when you've had this exit, everyone's like, what's your next thing? What's your next thing? What are you going to do next? And I felt like it was important to just kind of lose yourself and derive from first principles if you're going to start something again and know why, right? And so I kind of just just seeing where it goes, travel, cross off the bucket list stuff, enjoy life, just learn to DJ, stuff like that. I became a male model briefly, which was crazy. Bergdorf Goodman, that was crazy. Very briefly, did not last.
I'm glad we're doing a video recording.
Yeah,
for this.
Exactly. So they can verify. Exactly. but then I think eventually I realized like, oh wait, I'm a creative person. I need to build. And the key moment for me was trying the HoloLens 1, because I think like VR was hot at the time, around 2016. Oculus had just been acquired by Facebook then, and VR didn't really click for me because I felt like it was very dissociative. That it was like kind of pulling you out of the real world. And then I tried the HoloLens. That was the game changing moment. I was at a conference in Minneapolis and called I/O Festival, and I tried it and I was like, holy shit, this is so mind blowing, because this is exactly the type of it was so clear and so vivid. And even to this day, I think it's like the quality of display is better than a lot of the stuff out there. So and so it was just mind blowing for me. I was like, I thought AR was way out there in the future, and now it's a lot quicker. And then I assumed that the curve I saw at Android and mobile phones of how quickly that ramped, that was going to happen to AR and VR as well. And so I was, and I'd been dreaming up all these 3D user interface ideas at Bump Top and then at Google as well, where it was just like, okay, sweet, we have now the device to now make this happen. So the idea was, hey, your next computer is going to be a pair of glasses. It might not be today, it might be in a couple of years out, but we want to seize this opportunity to create some of the foundational apps and experiences and way we collaborate in AR and in this new world. And it was a chance to put our fingerprints on history, right? Like the idea is that is the last visual interface that's going to exist. And we have a chance to correct some of the things and like that were encumbering us by, tons of notifications, thousands of tabs open, just things that don't really feel natural and as humane as using a pencil and paper, using your desk. And so following through similar themes of the last piece of work. So the idea was start Spatial, met my co-founder, convinced my co-founder Jinna to move from Korea and start this company. Didn't exactly know what the product was, but the idea was like, okay, back us. We want to create some, AR is the next big thing. We want to figure out the next we want to figure out what those foundational interfaces and experiences are of this new world.
Got it. Cool. Well, and so I want to read some headlines to the audience, because you guys have had a long journey since that original founding story, a lot of pivots, and just to give some context on the various areas you've explored, and I think we'll explore even more than what these headlines suggest.
I like to call them adjustments.
Okay, adjustments, yes, because they're all sort of in the same theme of 3D immersive spaces. But I'll just read these three that I found through some internet sleuthing. So, Chat App Telly feels like FaceTime built for AR. Spatial raises $25 million, pivots to NFTs. That's 2021. The last one was 2020. Roblox competitor Spatial announces UGC Games and Unity integration. That was 2023. And I was looking for a headline about Animal Company, but no one's written about it yet, which is awesome, because now we can break some news about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, just to follow up on that with a question, like I'm interested in the founder perspective, right? Like you've had these evolutions, and I want to sort of understand, like, what's the point in which, as a founder, okay, this product needs to evolve, like, and it's time to try something new. And then how do you also approach what that new thing is?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think like, those headlines are a trip down memory lane. We started an AR company in 2016, and it's almost 10 years later, and we don't have everyday AR headwear, and so, it's been a long journey to try to stay alive and try to do something compelling and continue to grow our user base. And part of it was like, really, I think so we were always searching for signal, where can we, and what would the general arc that happened is, like, we started off, our first device was HoloLens 1. And we kind of became the biggest app on HoloLens 1. And we're like, okay, we've saturated this market, we can wait for it to grow, but how do we get to the next level? And then COVID happened in 2020. Quest 1 and Quest 2 was happening, and we're like, we had some issues with VR, and because we wanted this to augment, your real world experiences. But everyone's stuck at home. People were totally fine with VR. So we shifted to Quest, and that gave us another order of magnitude number of users. And we became one of the most popular, non-gaming apps there. And then we kind of saturated that, and we're like, okay, how do we get the next level of growth? We got to go to mobile. And so mobile helped us get another order of magnitude growth. And then eventually web. And then web helped us get another order of magnitude growth. And meanwhile, like when we started building this company, I think lessons from the last company, because BumpTop was meant to be this futuristic interface vision for the future. But when touch computing got there, like aka the iPhone, nobody needed a desktop. And so I was really burned by that experience because I wanted to really future-proof as much as you can, my next startup, Spatial. And so we didn't know what the final headwear was going to be when we started on the HoloLens 1, but we knew that it's going to generally be made by Apple or it's probably going to run iOS or Android. It's going to be a touch interface or a pointer or a wand or something like that. We could abstract certain things away. We knew multi-platform would still be relatively important, not only between headsets, like just in the same way WhatsApp connects iPhone and Android users, you could imagine a need for that within a multi-headset world, but also, connecting it to your phone, like your phone will still be important, for a while, right? We still use desktop computers, even though tons of time on phones. So trying to take as many of these learnings as possible into the construction or the kind of strategy and kind of, approach of the startup. And so, as we're growing, we're trying not to lose sight of that fact and expanding the capabilities of the platform, expanding the users. Today we are majority web, even though a user can connect from, can put on a VR headset like a Quest and join a user running from mobile, joining from a user running from the web. And the web's our biggest platform. I think it's 70% of usage right now. But and it's meant to be a doorway to the future. A lot of those learnings came from actually putting the product into tons of Fortune 500's hands, and they would, we try to get them in meeting, they would run regular meetings. We had customers like Pfizer, Mattel, some great Fortune 500 partners, Purina, and they would use these things, and they would try to have a meeting with 20 people, and invariably someone wouldn't charge the headset or they couldn't get it on or whatever. And that convenience of just clicking a link and you're into a Zoom, we try to replicate with our web app. So we have, a Spatial IO link, you click it, you're instantly in, and just really removing that friction, even if you're just getting your headset set up because, for whatever reason. So that, that's an example of kind of the constant evolution. I think, so we were just always trying to find signal, trying to get to a bigger and bigger market. And we'd get to the kind of maximum of where we were in that market and kind of keep looking beyond. And so, it was just a signal finding.
Where did each of these markets that you go into sort of have, I know VR has always been sort of over projected in terms of the amount of demand. Was that sort of the case that each time you made these pivots, there was sort of a market signal that these were going to explode, and then they just never really took off the way that they needed to? Or
kind of, but
was it more of a strategy of we're just going to win each of these markets, until we get
mobile
across all of the markets a really big user base?
Sometimes the headsets went away, and so there was some headsets that were like AR headsets that plugged into a phone, and so those didn't really take off. But we did invest in those. The headsets didn't get to the scale of phone and desktop, but phone and desktop are pretty huge, and I wouldn't say we've won those markets by any means. But they're it's also about is there a product market fit here for users of that market, right? So there's a bit of a balance.
What would you say is the common thread across everything you've done so far? We're going to get more into, it sounds like you sort of, you eventually moved to web, desktop, mobile, and you even started creating content. We haven't gotten to that part yet, but I'm just wondering, what's been the common thread across everything you've done so far?
I think really, the conception of the company was invent the future, right? I think and we think that if you think about static 2D interfaces that we use on desktop and mobile, really it's to pull those in the future. We think the future of interfaces is immersive, it's multiplayer, it's spatial, it fills the room around you. It's ideally meant for headsets that let you seamlessly blend the real world and the physical world. So you can sit on a desk and it can feel like a virtual colleague is sitting right next to you. And so bringing that kind of futuristic vision of how we see the future of the internet, the future of computing as this social, spatial thing, we even called, I think is collaborative computing. We're trying to build the world's first collaborative computer because we can all use this thing at the same time. We even called it like, the way a basketball team, moves up the court. And like their nonverbal communication, kind of know where each other's going to be. That feeling, can we get that feeling in computing and in a computer that we use together? And can collaboration feel like that on a computer rather than email inboxes and Slack threads and that? So, I forget the question. What was it again?
What's been the common thread across everything? So is it more? So I talked about it like social, but it sounds more like you're focused on co-working and connection within the workspace.
I think it's pulling this vision of the future, this immersive, collaborative, social, into everything we do. Now, it started off on AR VR as a more enterprise collaboration thing. It's moved. Spatial is now more brand-focused metaverse. We've got a really exciting launch with Walmart this week where we basically built like what looks like a PlayStation game that runs on the web. But that's kind of the common arc is like, can we push us into this more immersive, tangible future? The idea is that the future of the internet is not going to feel flat, 2D, and singular like it is today. We want we think the future of the internet can be this embodied, social, richly visual, collaborative thing, and that's been kind of the common arc.
All right, so we're talking about this platform that you've been building, where any creator or developer can come on and pretty easily build experience in a 3D virtual space, similar to Roblox, but also maybe more targeted towards VR than Roblox. So what I want to understand is, you're competing with Roblox. What Roblox has been able to achieve is to get a flywheel going where content creation is driven by an existence of a player base and creators wanting to build experiences for that player base. The player base is there because there's already content on the platform. So you have the classic chicken or an egg problem. Like, we can't get players unless we have content. We can't get content unless we have players. And they've managed to, get past that phase, get to scale. And now it's all, gravy for them. More creators keep coming to the space. They keep making more money. So how do you, as a new platform, take that approach? You've been doing it for a few years now. What have you learned in terms of the things you've tried and what's been successful and what's not been?
Yeah. I mean, the initial thesis was like the UGC was blowing up. Roblox, UFN just launched. And so the idea of like UGC in general was really, really strong at the time that we started going into this about 2 years ago. And I think like our idea was we want to bring the Roblox model to Unity developers and to the web. So like ideally 2 untapped markets. And, Unity developers, majority of games are written in Unity, majority of game devs are Unity developers. However, if they wanted to build a UGC experience on the major platforms like Roblox or UFN, they've got to use totally different set of tools. Lua, you got to learn, UEFN, et cetera. So the idea was like, let people, and we are the only platform. We put a lot of hard work into basically allowing Unity developers to actually use C# because there's other languages that there's other platforms, UGC platforms that allow you to use Unity but not C#. So the idea was let users use the exact tools that they want, developers, and give them monetization tools, make multiplayer really easy, multi-platform really easy, and just really simplify the barrier to entry. Where you literally like blank scene, hit go, it's instantly multiplayer, it's instantly hosted in the cloud, it instantly works on mobile, VR, and web. And so that was a thesis. And I think like you said, there's a bit of a chicken and egg problem. Now, we had a huge coming out of the gate, and there's a ton of Unity developers and people developing these compelling experiences. We also were trying to bootstrap it with our, UFN needs Fortnite to exist, right? And so we were like, okay, we've got compelling traction, but we want to get to the next level. and get find our hit. We need our hit game to help get this to elevate it, right? And so we need to build our Fortnite. So we started building a lot of different game types because we weren't sure what would resonate with this marketplace, with this audience. Tried clicker games, we tried sniper games, we tried dress up games, all kinds of stuff to just.
What were you looking at to determine what types of games to make?
What a variety of factors. I think like what's hot right now. Is there some trend in games that could be compelling? What's working on web or on mobile, where we've seen things kind of take off?
When I was looking at your guys' games, it felt a lot like some of the games you see on Roblox, like number go up games, like like Punch Hero or something along those lines.
Yep.
You guys built an only up game, so it seems like you're drawing a lot of influence from what's popular on Roblox and Fortnite.
There was definitely like that was definitely one of the theses we were trying, right? We were trying a bunch of different things. So for example, we're like, hey, these fast growing games, like at the time, punch simulators were the hottest, one of the hottest games on Roblox. And so we were thinking, hey, can we bring that game to a different audience? You just click a link and you're in. That same click a link you're in that we came up with for the collaboration scenario, because we're using the same platform that we've been building all along for 8 years. Click a link, you're into Punch Hero, and can we make this game way more accessible? You don't have to install anything; it just runs in the browser, and that was a thesis there. On Only Up, yeah, exactly. It was a super hot game, and we our thinking was like, hey, Stumble Guys brought Fall Guys to the mobile audience, and made it like. Made it super accessible for folks because you couldn't play it there. And we were thinking, can we do that with Only Up, one of the fastest growing games as well. And so, so we were trying a whole bunch of different stuff.
Got it. Cool. So you're going through that process. What was sort of the takeaway after, trying to build your own games for a while?
Yeah, we built a lot of games internally. We built a lot of games internally, about 20. Animal Company is our 21st game. So I like to say 21st time's a charm. And like we started initially building them in-house, and then we're like, well, let's try getting studios externally to do it. And so we tried that. We also tried like, co-dev, where we like find a studio that has successful games, but they have more skin in the game. We tried a Shark Tank style game show, Wolf's Den, where we got Ice-T and other judges to try to stimulate demand from a gaming perspective. Yeah, Cliffy B, as well to try to stimulate demand of developers to come onto the platform. And we also tried porting games that were successful elsewhere from developers using the Unity-based SDK, because the idea is it's very easy for them to bring over. So tried a lot of stuff, to make it work.
Got it. And so were there any things that worked particularly well, or was it all sort of like, really difficult to get the flywheel going?
I think the SDK is super powerful, and the games by kind of mobile and like mobile success standards, probably not there. I think the web audience is very fickle. It's very hard to get something sticky on web. And, I think what we really learned is that at the same time that this gaming stuff was happening, brands are loving our SDK, and studios like Pijama Kusama are loving our SDK. And so we're like, okay, and that segment starting to take off in terms of monetization, the enterprise brand segment. And so we returned to our roots on the Spatial IO side, and now Spatial IO is generally, yes, you can still use it as a public-facing kind of SaaS platform, for easy one-click metaverse stuff. But brands and enterprises is definitely the bread and butter, and that's working really well. For that SDK, we honed for gaming because those brands and enterprises still want that gaming element and that customizability. But then through that, we stumbled upon the VR market as we were trying to, again, signal find and try everything, try web, try mobile, etc.
Well, you guys also tried building a couple UEFN games. Did you build any Roblox games?
We looked at it. I think we looked at both. We never shipped anything on UEFN or Roblox. It was just like it was kind of like signal finding, we're in a brand new market. Let's figure out, just how we can claw for life and get something that kind of takes off. And, as we got into it, I mean, like I went to RDC, I went to Unreal Fest, and like I saw the people making the top games, and like it felt like we were in another league. I mean, like I was definitely 20 years older, and they just loved and breathed the platform so much, like and like they were just so in it that like it was going to be pretty hard to compete with that level of person. I think that just understands the culture.
But you guys are
so
like
much.
you guys are a very talented group of developers. Most people who are successful on Roblox and Fortnite didn't start off as like talented developers. They just happened to make something that they thought would be fun, and then all of a sudden it turned out like hundreds of millions of people agreed with them. So like I guess how do you didn't think that you could just sort of make a better version of the games that you were already seeing on those platforms?
I mean, they were so. I think like what we found when we got into it, Roblox hyper competitive, really hard to get through. Hard to get our developers to code in Lua because it's a big uphill curve to kind of do that. I think, and then UEFN, it was just very difficult to make. The surface area of what you could build in UEFN at that time was very small. Like basically any idea we'd have was like just, we can't really do anything. There's no persistence. There's no, so like, and I don't know if it's changed much, but when we were looking at it, most things were effectively kind of training combat simulators for the real game, and hard to kind of break out of that. So, yeah, challenging.
Yeah, the platform has evolved significantly, I would say. Like, if you guys took another look today, you'd be like, oh, there's some things that we can build. I think the persistence is finally there, but there's also some limitations around persistence. Like, you can't have persistence across different experiences, which means that like you can't create an RPG game where you have multiple different maps within the same storyline. So yeah, that totally makes sense. So then tell me about how you came to decide to build a VR game. You look at these other platforms and you're like, there's nothing here for us. Then you look at VR. What were you seeing?
Yeah, I mean, after building about 20 games and not getting to the level of success we wanted to see, one of the areas, I mentioned, we're looking at everything: UEFN, Fortnite, UEFN, Roblox, web games, like every, SEO is a growth mechanism, portals, there's the whole gamut. Where can we find that kind of ability to break through? Which I think is that's one thing I noticed going to gaming conferences and just absorbing what people are doing is that like game people, like when people have that first breakthrough, that first casual game that breaks through, they're just kind of like trying a whole bunch of different stuff, and they'll find a little crack of opportunity and exploit that. And so like, similarly, we were kind of trying to do the same thing. Built all these games, mobile, crazy hard, the whole industry, I think last year was like flat minus Monopoly Go, or, and mobile's super competitive. Web, also kind of at the mercy of portals. And if you want to get traffic, if you don't have it already. And so that's a challenge. And then all of a sudden, like one of our advisors, Charles Zhu, he was looking at VR and saw an opportunity there. And, what's funny is we've been on Quest since like Quest 1. We never, we knew about Gorilla Tag. We saw, but we just thought it was this isolated thing and, not really replicable. And we didn't even consider, doing a VR game. It was right under our nose. But as we started talking to some of the VR developers, people were making like decent revenue. And the ARPU was like, whoa, okay, this is interesting.
Can you share some numbers?
And trying to think, not without, I don't want to reveal it,
You don't have to say like, who did it.
Well,
okay,
here.
Say like, how much money were you hearing?
Well, okay. Well, Gorilla Tag has mentioned that they've released, they've made $100 million in 3 years. Okay. Now they're literally the top.
Yeah.
Although, yeah. So that like, and that was a couple years ago. I think those numbers are slightly older, so you could imagine that the market's grown a bit and they're making more than that. Uh-huh. But that gives you a sense, like, of where they're at,
and
right?
How much is the market growing? I'm just trying to wrap my head around the VR market, just to get grounded in that.
Yeah. It's hard to say. I mean, like, holiday, like we've grown 4x since December, which is awesome. Certainly there's a bit of bump from like Quest 3S launched this December. And, definitely there was an influx and that helped drive it. Like, Christmas was our biggest day ever. All those 3Ss opening up and stuff. We don't have meta information, like no pun intended, on how the platform's doing. But 3S has definitely been helpful. I think having something at that lower price point is really key because people still love, like, the audience that plays Gorilla Tag and Animal Company, Yeeps, they still love the $199 price point, and I think, like, there's a certain, like, that audience and that price point is like a really good fit.
Got it. And so I guess it sounds like people on VR are sort of used to this price point. It's better, like, $199 doesn't sound like you're making a ton of money on, from every player, but.
Oh, sorry, I meant $199 for the headset itself.
Oh, I gotcha.
So,
okay.
I think the Quest 3S is $299, but $199 is really, like, where you could really, like, players on the hardware are somewhat cost sensitive, it seems.
Okay.
And the lower the price goes, because I think the Quest 3 was closer to $500, and that was the only headset in market until Christmas or until end of last year. And so it was kind of maybe an artificial drag on the market because they're trying to sell out their old Quest 2 inventory. And that was slightly cheaper on special, whatever. But TLDR, cheaper the headset. I think the cheaper that this audience kind of loves it.
Got it.
So and what this audience is, it's the Gorilla Tag, social, free to play, younger audience.
Got it. So you've seen a lot more engagement in the last few months because this new lower cost headset came out, and a lot of people picked it up around Christmas.
Yeah. And the good news is, like, so far we're still seeing, like, February's still been strong, and like there's some seasonality that generally cools off in Jan, but we're still seeing it in Feb. So I don't know if that's like the growth of the underlying platform, or something we're doing, or a bit of both. Probably a bit of both.
Got it. Okay. In terms of the total VR market, do you have a sense of that? I was just doing some quick Google searching. It looked like it was around like $17 billion, which for the broader, so this is VR game market specifically. I think the VR market is probably significantly larger than that. But if we think, $200 billion is the current market across mobile, PC, and console, then it's roughly like, what is that, 8.5% of the total games market at the moment, which is not insignificant.
I think, yeah. I mean, I don't know what the number is. Those ballparks sound about right. I think the difference is, like, maybe how competitive it is, right? Like, try to get a mobile hit game. Like, we built this game in 3 months and we launched it, in July, 4th of July, baby. And I'm a Canadian, but I celebrated 4th of July this year, but with Animal Company release. And, and then within like 6 months or whatever, or I think, like, since then, like, we're now the number one earning game on the platform, which is crazy. Like, I think that you don't hear about that kind of stuff happening in mobile anymore. I mean, imagine being the number one game on mobile, like, just in period. Like, that seems kind of like for an indie team, I mean, I know we're not indie technically speaking, but for a small team, that seems kind of impossible. So what I'm trying to say is, like, the dynamics are different. Yes, the market size is very different, but the competitive dynamics are also super different. And there's an engaged audience here. Like this, like, Gorilla Tag publishes their CCU on their website. You can see, like, they're clocking 70 to 100K CCU, and they're like, and like, they're making, like, those guys are monetizing as well.
Yeah. So, and it's interesting because you said you launched in July, but it did become the top earning game until around now, January, February. What was that whole time period like? Because when I think about a big mobile game launch, I would assume that they become the top earning game pretty quickly after launch because they're doing a bunch of advertising. So that didn't happen for you guys. It sort of, was it this slow growth?
Yeah.
Or what were you guys?
It's interesting. I mean, we didn't even launch monetization until September. So we launched in July. Okay. We didn't have monetization until September. Right. So, like, what was crazy is like this was one of our game experiments. Like, we tried a ton of games. We spent roughly 3 to 5 months building them, generally speaking. And this was one of those. It was like a Skunkworks project, building a game within Spatial, which we had done before. And the team wanted to, at the 3-month mark, the team wanted to work on it longer. And, it was kind of like a Gorilla Tag clone in the sense that it was like all gorillas with jiggly butts. And they were really fun and silly and goofy. Like the eyes popped out of your head, the butts jiggled, and it was just silly and fun and stupid. And the team was like, no, we can't launch this. It's too much of a clone. And I was like, guys, this is awesome. We have something special here. Like a good pop song, when you first hear it, sounds like something you've heard before. There's an instant familiarity with it, right? And so I think we captured that with the initial thing because people instantly could connect with these gorillas and stuff like that. And so that really helped. But we were not sure, but I also said, guys, we want to spend as little time on this as possible because we need the ability to be wrong and build another game in the kind of time allotment we have, right? Rather than work on it forever and then ship. And so we didn't even basically from when we launched, it had super strong CCU growth. TikTok, social, I'm sure we'll get into it, but that was a big driver for us. But it was kind of up. And every month, we were reaching new highs in terms of usage. Retention was really strong out of the gate. I think we had possibly near 70% D1, 60-70% D1 out of the gate. It was super, super strong. And the numbers we were seeing were really inspiring. And so, but we wanted to do monetization right. And it took us a while to get there. A lot of it, the first couple months was just firefighting, make sure we can get releases out and systems are breaking and we just players trying to hack us. And
were there any things that translated from the spatial work to the VR work, or was it learning a new language?
No, I think, a lot translated. I mean, for one, some of the team members who made Animal Company have been working here 6 years, and so we're a well-oiled team and well-oiled machine. We had weekly releases with good engineering practices. So on Spatial, we had weekly release cycle, QA, etc. And so I think that's been a really helpful thing for us, is being able to bring over all that, with this well-oiled team that, is producing at a weekly pace with end systems. And we were able to bring over code too, which was exciting. Our avatar system is pulled over from Spatial, which lets us morph any clothing, any cosmetic to any different body mesh, which is awesome because it gives us this really rich, sophisticated, kind of best-in-class avatar cosmetic system in VR. So not only were we pulling processes, expertise, but also code. And we were able to get a bunch of head starts because we had already built a monetization system, for Spatial UGC platform and stuff. So there was a lot to pull over for sure. And just the domain expertise of building something, because we had reps of building games and as well. So we got a lot of reps in, I think, before this.
Got it. We've gone pretty long without actually saying what Animal Company is. So can you give us a description both on what is the gameplay, what's the objective, and then also how are you guys monetizing?
Sure. Yeah. So Animal Company is a kind of in short, kind of a Gorilla Tag meets Lethal Company. Lethal Company, the horror friend game. So you're a bunch of animals. It started off with gorillas, and but now it's all kinds of stuff, goats and moles and all kinds of stuff that you can be. And you go out on adventures, fight monsters, find loot. Go in caves. There's mines where you can mine stuff and find loot there as well. And so it's really exciting. We've got a very regular pace of updates, which is what our players love. On monetization, it is, we started off as this horror kind of game loop where you get scared. It was very scary, but we are moving to more kind of broader based social adventures, things you can do together. And even a potentially creative mode coming up.
Is it PvE?
Haven't lost sight of the UGC.
Nice. Is it PvE or PvP?
Yes. Yeah, PvE for now.
Okay.
Wink, wink. So, and then monetization started off with cosmetics. And all kinds of cool, wearables and not just cosmetics you wear, but full on, you can buy our mole pack and be 3 different moles or what have you. And then we moved to, like items as well, like item-based monetization. We've got you can get a grappling gun or that sort of stuff. Now, what's cool is that we have a tech tree, but our tech tree is amazing. You go in, you put a headset, you literally put on, you're already in VR, but you put on a VR headset in VR, and now you're in this like crazy expansive environment where you're literally immersed in this like huge scale tech tree. So you're swinging across like a gorilla, collecting items and making sure you're trying to fill out your tree and stuff. So that was a really successful update for us. So far, we've been hitting on every like major game update we've done. Like we did the tech tree update, which was really huge for monetization and engagement. Also, our mining update was really big for that as well.
Very cool. And you sort of mentioned it before I interrupted you, but you were saying that UGC might be on the way, which I love that because it's like you're spending all this time trying to build games to sort of start that flywheel on your own platform. And now you've gone to, a different platform, the MetaQuest platform, and you built a game there. And now this is successful. And now you can bring in the UGC because you already have the player base.
I think, we're doing it more closer to what Fortnite did, which is get the hit game and then, extend it. I mean, I think and what's cool is we're seeing kids are already using the rocket packs to make Angry Birds, and piling up the crates, and they're already finding ways to make games and make a creative mode without an official creative mode. So it's going to be pretty amazing to see them actually do it for reals.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I feel like Rec Room is sort of your ally here, where they've been training these kids to use VR headsets to be really creative for the last 5 to 10 years. I don't know if it's quite been 10 years yet, but almost there. So there's this whole audience who is used to using UGC tools and used to VR headsets that I feel like you've sort of probably brought into your game in a large capacity.
Yeah, and it's really leveraging the loop that Roblox. I think in Roblox, you kids play the games, they love them, and then they kind of graduate to being a creator and making stuff, and it's this virtuous cycle. And what we're seeing, what's different about games like these games today versus how when we were a kid, where you buy the game, for the Nintendo cartridge, you put it in, and whatever's on that cartridge is what you're playing, and that's it. These are the loop I'm seeing now is so cool because basically kids they get the game, they also go in the Discord and they are voting on features. So there's a conversation with developers on that, right? They're we like this feature, we don't like this feature. So I wish I had a game like that when I was a kid, where I could tell developers what features I want, stuff like that. And also they're playing the game. Kids all want to be YouTube streamers. They all want to be the next Mr. Beast. So they're making content and then they're putting it out there. And then other kids see the content and then they come into the game, and then play it. And so that's that loop, which I think is the kind of almost the core meta game of this and other things that are taking off. That's the core meta loop, I guess, that's powering some of our growth and also other platforms.
Yeah, I feel like one of the things people don't appreciate about UGC game platforms is just how much work goes into the community management side by game creators, and they're managing communities of 10,000 to 100,000, sometimes a million players, and that's incredibly valuable to the platform. And a lot of times it's overlooked, but you basically, if Roblox, for example, has 10,000 creators who are managing communities that are massive, and so I think to the degree that you can sort of facilitate and outsource all of the things that go into live ops.
The other thing that's interesting is with VR that's unique is that, it's got a finite battery life. So they need something to do while they're not in the headset while it's charging, right? Which is interesting. And we noticed that our playtime is kind of has an upper limit in some ways because it's that device is going to die, after an hour or 90 minutes, whatever it is.
No one's invented a plug that can...
Well, there is, but, people, you're moving around so much and stuff, people don't really want the plug, right? Yeah.
Got it. Cool. So I want to sort of transition to looking ahead a bit. So what's next? Are you going to be a VR developer now, or are you really just doubling down on Animal Company and going into UGC, and then you're just going to sort of do what you wanted to do on Spatial, but on Animal Company? What are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, so the exciting thing is we have two businesses that are pretty interesting. So we have Spatial still doing really well. We've got that big Walmart launch this week, which your listeners will be able to see, and it's crazy compelling. Brands, enterprises continue to use it. We've actually got some pretty cool AI agent work coming in there as well, like where, there's AI agents. Generally, that's a text box, but there should be shouldn't there be a way to like enrich your virtual world with these AI agents that can teach you stuff for like, corporate training or show you around or, chat with you, whatever. So I think that visual element is quite compelling for Spatial. So we're going to continue to grow Spatial there. And then Animal Company is just growing by leaps and bounds. I mean, we really want it to be the next, Angry Birds or like big, Adopt Me, like that kind of household name. It's the sky's the limit. I mean, every time, like, it's so touching to see on our Discords, like people are making their own plushies. They're like, drawing, like in terms of fan art, and this stuff is posted like multiple times an hour. So we think like the ability to become just a real franchise is crazy exciting. I think, the future is bright.
So, and I'm curious on the MetaQuest side, what are the platform fees that you're dealing with?
Similar to Apple, right? 30% on. Yeah, exactly.
Got it. And to that end, I saw that Meta just announced a $50 million Horizon Worlds fund. I'm curious to get your perspective on you've done this before, right? You've done all of these things, incentives for creators. Now you're also a developer yourself on their platform. So when you see Meta sort of taking these steps, investing larger amounts of money into incentivizing creation for, their UGC game platform or UGC, social immersive world platform, what does it mean? Like, what does it mean from your perspective?
Yeah, no, it is interesting because I feel like, we've tried. I mean, they're obviously trying it like with a lot more zeros than we were able to throw at it. But, we did try a bunch of that stuff before. They don't have a fully Unity-based development platform, so you kind of need to have a bigger incentive to get people to learn to use your tools, because nobody wants to use your tools unless they're already players and they're already or there's a massive audience that's monetizable. I think they tried the let's make our hit game internally thing with that paintball game, and I think like, that got, decent success, but like not quite the breakaway that they wanted. And now they're doing the developer incentive thing, which, good on them for trying. There's always a natural tension because it's like, they also they're a content developer as well as a, app store for us, people like us. So, but I don't know. I mean, like, if they make it take off, what does that mean? Does that mean we make a Animal Company for Meta Horizon? I don't know. I mean, the audience is kind of different, I guess, because like if you look at how the experiences are targeted, like comedy clubs and things like that, karaoke, it seems to be targeting an older audience. But then if you jump in the experiences, they're kind of a younger audience. And so I don't know. They've got to kind of reconcile some of that stuff, but yeah,
I feel like
I'm curious to see 50 mil is a lot of money.
Yeah, and it seems like it's on top of the incentives they already have, right? Because they give around 50% of spend in Horizon Worlds already, which is significantly more than what Roblox gives. And I won't even get into UEFN because the calculation's all wonky, but. So like they're giving pretty favorable incentives to creators in terms of, take rate. And then also I think this 50 million fund is on top of that, right? It's like engagement based payouts. So I don't know. I was curious if like, you guys would be like, all right, let's go after that pie. Or if, you're happy to explore the app ecosystem instead.
I mean, so far it's very fun developing for the app, like for Quest players. Mm-hmm. It's an awesome audience. They're super engaged. We got to profitability in December as a company, which is crazy exciting.
Yeah.
And I think like sky's the limit. Like,
Yeah. So when you say profitability, do you mean like on a month over month basis you have operating profit, or are you saying that you've paid back all of your your expenses over the last 8 years that you've accumulated?
right? No, month over month profitability, and on a path to that that second thing. But since December, things are looking very good. We achieved profitability as a total company. Revenues are continuing to increase and ramp up from that, which is crazy exciting.
Yeah.
Hasn't cooled off given the seasonality yet. Even like we're in February and things are still going up. So, profitable and on a path to clear all expenses.
How long has Gorilla Tag been a top game? Like maybe using that as sort of a benchmark for how long your guys' engagement will sustain.
I mean, I believe they came out in like COVID, 2020, 2021 sort of time frame. So around 4 years. I mean, it's hard to predict, like to fully correlate it to us because it was a different time. There was no Gorilla games. They kind of broke through, and you can buy Gorilla Tag gift cards and like, a Safeway now and stuff, right? So they're a new level of scale. But yeah, we are. One, we love Gorilla Tag. They're awesome for the community. They share their Gorilla Tag code. They share their CCUs, and so we're happy to be on that path with them.
Have there been other Gorilla Tag, I won't like heavily inspired games that have come and gone, or I'm trying to get a sense of your confidence on your ability to sustain this for the long term and be one of those top games on the platform for a while.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you asked me 6 months ago, I'd be a lot more nervous. I think the things that make me I'm usually not very confident about this type of stuff. Like I'm not, but I would say that it's hard to say games that have come and gone. Yeeps came out, I think earlier, maybe a year head start or 8 months head start, something like that. And they've been quite steady. I think there does seem to be, if you look at the top 20 on Quest, a lot of the titles seem familiar. Like there is some stickiness to it. But I mean, we have a lot more confidence now because we're just seeing like the KPIs we're seeing around revenue continuing to increase, our conversion rate continuing to increase on users, and then just DAO. I mean, DAO and MAO, like our DAO is up 4x from December 1. So I think basically, we can't predict the future, but we're also like the number 2 game by popularity. So things are continuing to grow, which is really exciting. We think that if we keep like hitting on content updates and things like that, we can continue to grow the pie and hopefully stay top.
Is this I guess I'm wondering, are you eating Gorilla Tag's lunch right now? Or are we growing the pie?
It's hard to say. I mean, like, certainly I think there's some correlation in the audience. Like when we have an update, and they don't, or they have an update, we can feel it in our metrics kind of thing. But I think we're growing the audience. Like I think Gorilla Tag's, slightly younger. I think they actually allow 10 and up, if I'm not mistaken. It does feel like a bit of a different audience because like we have a different, we're more horror and we have different animals. And, I think, I think there's certainly some overlap, but it does feel like a bit of a different audience.
Yeah, and so Meta doesn't share that data with you on sort of what the most played games are, or what percentage of your audience is playing other games. You're just sort of looking at CCU.
No, yeah, but they do share how you're doing on the platform generally, like your revenue, like your benchmark on revenue and engagement, and we're top tier on that, which is awesome. But they're surely top tier too, yeah, I mean, they're also very, like, I would say they're very good stewards and Samaritans of like trying to, bring the teams together, trying to like, address challenges together and stuff like that. So, hopefully we can all grow that pie together and get more gorillas out there.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting that you can, achieve a similar type of scale because, on Roblox, when you see these copycats, they can achieve scale, but never quite the scale of the original. I'm not saying that Animal Company is a copycat, of course, but given that there seems to be some heavy inspiration, I'm just drawing the connection.
Yeah, yeah, of course. I mean, I think it's like, honestly, Gorilla Tag is the most important like launch on the VR platform, I think, since Beat Saber, probably. Like Beat Saber, I feel like showed this whole new level of embodiment. Like a lot of games before Beat Saber, Arizona Sunshine, except Super Hot, they were very FPS. You got guns in your hands, you're moving with the joystick. Super Hot had a bit of embodiment, and in Beat Saber, it was all embodiment, right? And you saw a bunch of fitness games come out of that, and a Tailwind or a drafting that people could do off that. And the Gorilla Tag took the embodiment and to a whole nother level. And now there's all these games. It's cracked open this brand new genre and this new market of these kids who just love that kind of experience, and it's very social, silly, chaotic, and it just maps perfectly.
Yeah, and I can totally see like a kid being like, "Hey, I need to get a VR headset, Mom, because I need to be able to play Gorilla Tag with my friends." And obviously, that's exactly what every developer building for this platform is going to appreciate. That if you can get more headsets on people.
Yeah, and I mean, hopefully, like, I don't know, like, what happens, or when the kid gets a new headset, like, they give their old headset to somebody, like, something's got to happen with that old headset, so, we can keep growing the pie that way. That's fantastic.
That's a good point.
It's kind of a forever game, right? Like, we keep adding to it. There's still an extended richness. Players don't have a way to create yet in the game, and they're like kind of cobbling stuff together. So we want to support that better. Different game modes, as well. So there's a lot to do. I think it would we're a startup. We're small. We want to take our eye off the prize and go too wide. I think there's ways to go wide within the existing Animal Company, game that like ideally enhances the experience for players or brings it to a new audience. Or I think there's like that's probably a safer bet because we found something that's working. Games are hit driven businesses, and we've got a hit, and so how can we extend this hit versus like trying to make another hit?
Yeah, and you see, whether it's Fortnite or Roblox, that the early successes end up sticking around a lot longer. Adopt Me is like a 10-year-old game. Maybe not 10 years, but like 8-year-old game. Brookhaven, 7 or 6-year-old game. Like these games stick around when they are the top games. And then on Fortnite, you've got Bed Wars, you've got The Pit, you've got all these games that were successful 5 years ago, and now they're still the top games on the platform. So,
and you see it on VR too, interestingly, right? Like Gorilla Tag's been around 4 years. Beat Saber is still kicking. It's still a top 5 game. That's like one of the oldest games on the platform, virtual desktop. Like some of these are OG that are from way back in the day, from Quest 1, or even DK2, I think. Like, so there is definitely, I mean, you got to not screw it up. And I don't know what the list of games are that aren't still around, but were hot.
There's a lot. There's definitely a survivor bias here.
Yeah, sure. But it's certainly possible.
Yeah.
It's certainly possible, which is exciting. Population 1, that's also, though, bought by Meta, so maybe that's, but yeah, I mean, we hope to stick around.
Well, what I love about, this whole entrepreneurial journey is that you've just been, exploring, finding new opportunities to generate revenue. And ultimately, that's what a good entrepreneur does, right? Like they don't necessarily stick to the original vision. They find opportunity and they find blue oceans to grow. So I think that's what you've been doing, and it's awesome to see that you've finally hit it with Animal Company.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it is like the entrepreneurial journey is long. It can be long. I mean, I think like this was it's an overnight success wrapped in a 9-year struggle. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
With like lots of, you brought up those headlines, lots of fits and starts and trying to find that new gear and so on. So yeah, it's been wild, man. I mean, a lot of battle scars, along the way, but it feels so good to finally crack it, after chipping away. And yeah.
And in some ways it seems like all of those, opportunities that didn't pan out were also still preparing you for the one that did convert, right? Because you guys had all of this VR experience. You knew the platform, you were able to port a lot of your technology over to Animal Company. And so, yeah, it's awesome to see that also, like, if you do all this work, it's not for nothing, right? Like there's a lot of things that translate to the next thing you pursue.
I think like if you think about it as just learning, like we have a ton of learnings. And I think like if we're navigating those, the idea maze, like I feel like we've explored so many different, like, let's try this way. Nope, that way it doesn't work. Let's try this way. Nope, that doesn't work. But, every time you try something, I think you are learning a little bit more and more about what works and what doesn't work, and maybe being more efficient with stuff you try. It's interesting.
If, hindsight's 2020, but if you could talk to young Anand 8 years ago, what would you tell him?
I don't know. It is tough. I mean, like, it was pretty fun building all those like wide-eyed AR augmented reality demos where we're like kind of building the first 3D web browser and building the first meeting tool where we and like literally put on the headset in the lab and see a virtual person floating next to you. Like our friend Peter from San Francisco was sitting in my New York desk in my office. And so that stuff was so compelling. We got to, get in front of the, some of the biggest Fortune 500s. We demoed to Bill Gates and, the CEOs of like Delta, Netflix and stuff like that. So it was, and they used it, which is really compelling. So that stuff was incredibly fun. I don't know if I would tell young Anand 8 years ago, hey, just make a VR game. I mean, the market was in a different place too. We probably could have. I mean, we're not as smart as Lemming, who came up with Gorilla Tag. Like that was kind of a stroke of genius to that whole mechanic. So I don't think our game would have even worked yesterday, or not yesterday, 8 years ago. But I don't know. It's very hard to say. You could say, hey, don't do X, Y, and Z, or you could say like, hey, go right for gaming. I mean, I know we wanted to launch a lot earlier than we did, but it's really hard to say. Hindsight's 2020. I mean, we literally, I don't think we could have made Animal Company 8 years ago. We didn't even have some of the team members,
Yeah.
So very hard. I don't know. I wish I had a more succinct message for 8-year-old to go on it.
No, it sounds like the message would be just keep doing what you're doing, man. It's all going to work out eventually.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Hope so.
Well, what's the best way for people to keep in touch, follow your journey, if they're interested? Yeah,
probably. I mean, LinkedIn or Twitter. I don't really update those a ton, but I should do it more. I usually retweet kind of our stuff. I think my co-founder Jen Ali, he's way better about that. The Discord for Animal Company is like really interesting, and so that's like a fire hose. So. If you want to get on that. But yeah, follow Spatial _IO on Twitter. My handle's AnandX, ANANDX, and what else? I think Animal Company. Yeah, follow Animal Company on Twitter and Discord. TikTok.
After this call, I'm going to go put on my VR headset that I got at Roblox RDC 23, and I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to get in the mix with some
Company,
animals.
Man. Yeah, give it a whirl. It's super fun.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks for coming on the podcast, Anand.
Absolute pleasure.
All right. See ya.
Thanks, David.
If you enjoyed today's episode, whether on YouTube or your favorite podcast app, make sure to like, subscribe, comment, or give a 5-star review. And if you want to reach out or provide feedback, shoot us a note at podcast@naavik.co or find us on Twitter and LinkedIn. Plus, if you want to learn more about what Naavik has to offer, make sure to check out our website, www.naavik.co. There, you can sign up for the #1 games industry newsletter, Naavik Digest, or contact us to learn about our wide-ranging consulting and advisory services. Again, that is www.naavik.co. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you in the next episode.